Hey guys, my name is xOctoManx and today we are in part 7 of my turn-based battle system. In the last part we were able to move the enemies to any randomly chosen hero and attack those, or basically do the attack animation and going back to its original position. In this part we are going to start to make the inputs for the hero characters we are using. We will make them somehow visible so we can see better which hero is the one we can choose action for. And also we will enable and disable the attack panel and the enemy to choose panel. But before we do all of that, we need to prepare the scene just a bit. Then what does it mean? The select target panel, where we can select the enemy, we need to fiddle around with the buttons before we do anything. The first one, as you may remember from, I don't know which part it was, where we just creating that GUI, we just added 2 target buttons somewhere over here, but we didn't care about anything about placing and all the other things. And I said we may want to go over later on and create a horizontal layout group to place all that buttons properly. And that's what we do at first. So I want to make sure that the UI system is working exactly how I want to. And that means if I have 4 enemies in the battle or 3 enemies in the battle, the buttons will automatically created depending on how many enemies we have in the battle. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense anyhow at all. So we need to fiddle around at first with the GUI. So let's get started. We select the target panel, and here we created an empty game object. This empty game object is going to be our spacer object. I'm going to call this one spacer. This spacer object will hold all the buttons later on and place them on the right position, and also will place them properly so they won't overflow and anything else. The next thing is we need to take at least one of their target buttons and drag them into the spacer. I just go over and get rid of the second target button. The spacer itself needs to have a special, a special condition in the anchor from the anchor presets. What I do right now is I hold down Shift and Alt and select the the bottom right corner, which is uniform stretch, I believe. So the spacer will automatically right now do place all that buttons on the right, or they will be uniformly changed or whatever. The second one is we need to get rid of that custom rect transform basically, but I will show you how we do that. So at first what I want to do is in that spacer object in here, which again seems to be too big, just go over and drag this where I want this to be. So make sure you have that, and uniform stretch is on. So what I want to add to that spacer is a vertical layout group. So type in vertical layout group, or just go into the layouts and choose vertical layout group for this. What you will see is the button will automatically be stretched to the full size of our spacer game object. So, but this is not what we want. But the cool thing is, if we would go over and duplicate this one, it will automatically fit all the 4 buttons which may be inside, and we would have them automatically placed and resized. The downside is I don't want them to be if there's only one enemy back, I don't want to have the effect, or basically don't want the spacer to do it like that. I want to make sure that the target button is going to be or remaining the same size, except there's not enough space. So what we can do is, at first we're gonna need to add 2 components to the button itself. So I say add component, and the first one is going to be a horizontal layout group. I will explain this one in just a bit. We don't need to change anything currently, we will do that later. Also, what I want to do is I want to have a layout element onto the same. So what I can do is I can say flexible width and flexible height are going to be set to 0 2 times. And that's should be pretty much it for right now. So what I can do is when I go and get rid of child force expand height, it will just do what the horizontal layout group is going to tell what the button has to do. So what we need to take care of is the size of the text element, which is on our button. And when I change the size to 30, it will automatically, or even to 3, it will automatically change the height of our button depending on the text size. So let's assume we have a maximum text size of 30 and we have best fit on. The problem later on might be that they will overlay, but as you can see, they will still fit once I have 4 inside, but I did a give me just a second. Somehow it's Chinese. Okay, there we go. So if I get rid of one of them, you can see they will go back again in its size, depending on the text size. But it will never go higher than that. So we choose a text size which will maybe fit, maybe 25 for me. For you it might be a bit more or a bit less. So try to be kind of precise. As you can see, there's still a bit more possible. So I say I have a minimum or a maximum size of 2. So also the target's button rect transform is automatically changed by the spacer vertical layout group. So now, as you can see, without that height information in child force expand, we could also do that with a width. So the horizontal layout group would just go and just be that small as the text is, but we don't want that. We want the full size, or basically I want. So if the enemy's name is going to be bigger, then we might have a problem, or maybe it's going to shrink that automatically, but I just assume it won't happen anymore. If there would be a problem, I could just go over and create create a bigger target select panel, and then the buttons would fit anyways. So if I would go over and just increase or decrease the size, I could just have more space for enemy names. If I have a name like, I don't know, rubber blah 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 blah, and that wouldn't fit into that layout group. So make sure the text element in here is going to be centered. You can also go over and choose the left one, but I don't think you want to. And yeah, so what we want to do right now is that target button needs to be a prefab, because we need to instantiate that buttons depending on the mass or on how many enemies we have in our scene. So I just grab the target one button and drag this in my prefabs folder, and there we go. So anytime I want to or have to change anything, I can get one outside of that. So what I do next is I just get rid. Oh no, I don't get rid of that button right now. The next thing is I need a new script for a button, or for that button. So I can populate the button with information, like giving that another name, or giving the enemy prefab, or basically the enemy game object, and all the other things. So what we say is we create a new C# script, and I call this one just enemy, maybe select button. So in here we would just go over and store some information, also make later on maybe a selector visible or any game object to see what kind of enemy we are selecting. So open with this one up. Wait for mono develop. Give me a sec for this one. There we go. So what we need? We don't need to start, we don't need update, we don't just create our own functions in here if we need to. So the first and most important one is going to be public game object. We need to pass in a game object from the battle state machine later on. Public game object, and this is going to be our, let's say, enemy prefab or game object. You can call that whatever you want. Then when we are done with that, which is the first one, maybe we will go, well, I believe we will do and create some more. I create a new function for this, which I say is called select enemy. And of course this needs to be public, otherwise we cannot pass in or pass out anything. I believe it needs to be, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe so. Okay, so it's going to be public void select enemy, and we need to pass in information to the game or to the battle state machine later on. So what we do is we say game object dot find. We could also pass in the game object, no, we cannot create just a public a slot for that battle state machine, because it's a prefab, and the prefab wouldn't store the information to the battle state machine itself. So we need to find the game object in our game scene, or we just need to fiddle around with doing it a bit different. Anyways, we want to find our battle state manager, battle state machine. No, it's a battle manager game object. I'm sorry. Battle manager game object. So make sure you type this one right, depending on how your battle manager game object is called. So we want to find this one and want to say we want to get the component out of it, which is called battle state machine, and we want to pass in something later on. So which is basically the input the player is doing. So let's save the script for now. I just make an info to that. Save input of the enemy prefab. We need to pass in the prefab later on in this battle state machine. Okay, the enemy state machine does not need any changes for now, so basically I could just delete or basically close this one, but my hero state machine, or what is this called? Yeah, hero state machine, we will need to fill in some action and stuff later on. What do we need and what do we not need? We need let's fiddle around with the battle state machine at first. What we need at first is we have one state machine or switch statement, which is taking the enemy stuff, or basically the handle turns are going to take in by that state machine. But we need to create a second one, which is performing the input of the player. The sad thing is we cannot do that directly in the player or hero itself, because we would have problems into sending the right information to the right place. So we need to sadly do that in the battle state machine. So let me just create some space in here to fill in some information we just need. So what we want to do is we at first go and create a new enum, which is called I don't know, hero GUI maybe, and we just say hero input is the name of the enum. No, wait a second, that's wrong. The enum, public enum, hero GUI, that's what I wanted to say. So that hero GUI will just handle all the inputs and all the states we could or will have. So the first state is going to be called activate. So this is going to be activating the GUI elements, showing selector objects, and creating the handle attack or handle turns, basically a new instance of a handle turn. Then we have, as we have in other state machines also, we have a waiting turn, which is just basically for idling around and don't doing stuff 100 times. And then we have for my tutorial here, we just use for now input 1 and input 2. Input 1 will be just a basic attack, and input 2 will be the selected enemy. And then we have another state which is called just done with the input. We don't need the comma in the last one. And then we just say public, and then we create the connection to the hero GUI, and we say just hero input. That's what I wanted to say. So the hero input is going to be our connection to the enum. Okay, so don't forget to save often. I just do that mostly when I have done a small amount of stuff. So what else do we need? We need a new list. I'm sorry for that. We need a lot of lists in here, as you can see. But this list is about how to manage the heroes. What does it mean is, if the hero is done with the processing bar and the processing bar is full, we need to add that hero to a new list where we can just kick them off when we are just done with all the input. So that's what we do right now. So we say public list, and we call this this is a list of type game object. So because we just take the heroes directly, or basically we send the heroes into that list, we call this list heroes to manage. So depending on how many heroes I have in the game or in the battle, I just place in all the heroes to manage once they are ready to get managed. So if they are dead, they won't ever land in that list. So, and this is going to be a list of type game object. So that's what we do. We create the game object list. I'm going to zoom in a bit. I hope you haven't lost too many informations. Again, this LME select button, if you haven't seen that, pretty good. Okay. So we created the new enum with that 5 states. For now, maybe later on, I believe we will expand that. And also we want to say heroes to manage in here. Okay, with that done, we need another private variable where we pass in the hero's handle turn. So it's going to be private of type handle turn, and we just call this one hero's choice or whatever. Hero choice, maybe like this. So the hero choice will later on be created new, or a new instance will be created of handle turn, and then passed in, when we are done with all that stuff, into the perform list, as we have done with the enemies. So let's go forward and check what we have done. Yeah, we created everything in take action for the enemy already, and we later on go and do the same, or do basically the same stuff for the hero. So yeah, we will go over to that later on to make everything work later. So okay, we have done all of that. Now let's get back to the buttons. What we need is, we need to create a new function, and we say I don't know. We don't need to be to make this one public. It's just going to be a void, and let's say we create enemy buttons. And those enemy buttons will again be populated into the enemy selector panel, which is hidden, or which is here in the battle canvas, and will be populated with as much buttons as we need, depending on the mass on the enemies we just have. Also, we want to pass in informations into the enemy select button script. So we can read out informations, core functions from that button without doing much than just doing all of that. So what we say is for each... Oh, wait, give me a second. We need at first populate that list. Yeah. Before we do that, we go to the hero state machine. And in here we already have an add to list turn state. What do we need is we want to add this hero to the new created battle state machine hero to manage list once we are done with processing. And then we go forward and wait. So what we do is we go to the hero state machine right now. We already have or should have a connection to the battle state machine. If we don't have, okay, we just go over to the enemy state machine and copy the first line, which is private battle state machine BSM. We can also type this one out in here. So private battle state machine BSM. So we have a connection to, or almost a connection to, the battle state machine script. Also, we need to check the scene for this game object. So go to enemy state machine and copy the second line, or just go in here into the start function and say BSM is going to be equal to game object dot find. So we find the game object called battle manager. Don't forget to have no typos in there, and then we go and get the component out of that, which is called battle state machine. And there we go. So now we have the connection to the battle state machine from every hero in the game. Again, copy that or just type this one out as I have done right now. So with that done, we can just go over to our add to list turn state, because we will automatically land into that list anyways after the cooldown is done. So in our add to list, I just call BSM, which is the connection to our battle state machine script, and we can just go and add this hero to the heroes to manage list. So we say bsm.heroes-to-manage.add, and then what do we add in here is, I don't know, let's see what we add. Yeah, we add this game object, of course, like so. So we pass in this current selected game object, which holds this hero state machine, which is one of those heroes, this one, or even another one if we have 3, 4, I don't know how many. And then we add this to the heroes to manage list, and will be on the top of the list, on the bottom of the list. So the first one will be at 0, the second one will be at 1, and if we go and get rid of the 0 one, the first one will be automatically 0. So that's the cool thing about lists. It will automatically fit or fill the next point or whatever. And also what we want to do is, after we just added that hero to the newly created list, we want to go into the turn state waiting. So what we say is current state is going to be equal to turn state dot waiting. Oh, there we go. Also, I need to make sure, and of course end the line. We don't need turn state selecting, but we need action and that later on. So again, this is going to be our idle state. So we idle in here and wait for, for the inputs, of course. In the action state, we will go over and do our action as we have done here in the enemy state machine, which is basically all the same. So to get that done already, we at first need something in the heroes to manage list. So save the script, because we don't have to change anything at the moment in here, and go back to the battle state machine script. So now, if the processing bar is full, the hero will be added to the heroes to manage list. To the heroes to manage list. Maybe I have. Oh, give me just a second. My monodevelop just crashed. Okay, I loaded this script once again. If you haven't saved, please make sure that you save really often, otherwise you might lose any important information and you have to go through all of that stuff once again. Okay, so we are back in our battle state machine script. Somehow the solution hasn't been loaded right, but it doesn't matter. Oh, there it is. So, in the enemies buttons function we just started to create. Oh, let me go and get my infos right. Oh, that was a wrong one. There we go. So what we do is we want to populate our spacer object, which we have created already, with buttons, with the right enemy name to select, and also we want to pass in which game object does that button have to hold to get the right information back into the perform list. So what we say is we create, of course, a for each loop, and what we say is for each game object, I just call this one enemy in. Now in what? No, it's not going to be enemy. Oh yeah, it is enemy. In the enemies in battle list. So we have the here enemies in battle list contains all enemies in the game, basically. So which we just started to add in to that list at the start of the battle, basically. So so depending on how many enemies are in that list at start, we want to get rid, or basically want to add all of them, all of that enemies into that spacer game object. So what we say is we want to create a new game object, which is called just new button, and we say we instantiate an enemy button. I just call this one enemy button. We need to make a connection to that in just a second, because we forgot to add all that UI elements. And we want to instantiate this one as a game object. We don't need any other information. We don't need any location, no rotation, anything. Okay, so as you can see, it's red right now because we didn't edit that button into our list of variables in here. So we say public game object, and it's going to be our enemy button as I just typed in. And if we don't forget to save again, if we go into our battle manager, you will see there is a new enemy button in here. So we go to our prefabs folder and drag and target one button in here, and that's it. So this button will be populated when we are done with that into the spacer. So, but before we can do that, we need to pass in some informations. At first, we need to get the enemy select button script and create a new instance of that. So we say enemy select button. Basically, we don't create an instance of that. We need to the connection from the newly created button to pass in information. So what we say is this button script is going to be equal to new button.get component, because we need to get the component of the enemy select button script, which is on the button itself. And there we go. So now we have the connection to the enemy select button script, which we just created and added. Where is it? Oh, we didn't edit this one, so we need to. So we say add component enemy select button. I just take this one from this, and there we go. There will be just an empty slot for the game object of the enemy prefab, which will later on be passed in automatically. So I just added this one directly in the prefab, not in the scene. So make sure that you add enemy select button target or the enemy select button script to the enemy button or the target select button. Okay, so now we can find this component because it's on it. And of course, we also need something more. We need the connection to the enemy state machine of the currently selected game object. So we say enemy state machine. We also catch this one because we need that later on. I just say it's going to be car enemy, and this is going to be enemy, which is the game object we just take and stored in the for each. So we say enemy.getComponent, and of course we need the enemy state machine. There we go. And that's pretty much it for this line. And in the next line, we want to pass in text. The text of the button needs to have a name. So what we say is we want to add text. The problem is we cannot just add text if we don't have the right namespace. So we go into the upper part and say using Unity Engine .ui. Now we are able to use text elements or UI text elements like this. So we can say we create a new text, how shall I say? Instance basically, and call this one button text. A connection to that text which we need to read out of the enemy state machine and need to pass this one in to the new button. So we say button text is going to be equal to the new button dot, and now we need to find the text component inside our game object, which is basically that button, but it's one down. It's in the children of the game object. So it's not directly in here because there is no text element directly on the button itself, but in its children there is the text component. If you have renamed this one, then you need to take care in just a second. What we need to do is in that button we just created in here or instantiated in here, we need to say new button dot transform dot find child. We want to find the child in that button which has the name text. If you have renamed this one, make sure that you type the right name in here, otherwise just use text as I have done. So what we need to say, it's going to be of type game object, and in that game object we need to get its component, which is the text component, like this. And now we can add stuff to that text component by just using the variable button text. So we can say button text dot text is going to be equal to, and now comes the enemy state machine, which is going to be car enemy dot, and there we have our enemy in here. The enemy, if you may remember, is of type base enemy. Where is it? There it is, which is already populated with informations directly in the enemy itself, which I can show you, which is all of that stuff. And we need to pass in, where am I? Wrong script. What I need to pass in is the enemy's name we just created. If you may remember, the base enemy class should have a string name. Yep. And that's what we took, or we just go over and take and store that information in the text of the button. Then When we are done with that, we also want to say we need to pass in the content we need for the battle inside of the button, which is the enemy itself as its game object, and later on some other stuff too. So let's start with that. So we can say button a dot, and then we should have enemy prefab, which is this one. And what do we pass in? We just pass in enemy. We just got through the for each loop. Okay, with that done, we're not completely done, because we need to set the buttons we just instantiate directly in the spacer game object, which is this one. So now we need to grab the spacer spacer's transform and take that information to put all the button inside of that by using set parent. So at first I go over in here and I say public transform, with a big T of course, public transform, which I just call spacer. Save, don't forget. Now we go back to our battle state, to our battle manager. There should be, there we go, there's a spacer object of type transform. And what I take is I drag the spacer object and place this directly in the spacer slot. Don't forget to save the scene too. Now I have the information of the transform of the spacer, and what I need to do next is we need to say new button dot transform dot set parent is going to be the spacer game object, this one. The problem with that is that it will have or might have an overflow. I go and get rid of the target 1 button right now, delete this. I should have done everything right. But if you can, or if you will see in just a second, now it will automatically, or it should populate. Why it doesn't populate? Because we don't start it. So let's go into battle state machine, into the start function, and there we just need to call, after we are done with all that other things in here, at the very last we just call the enemy buttons function we just created in here. Don't forget to save again. And now we have populated the list automatically with the names of the enemies in the game, with enemy 2 and enemy 1. Also, this should be pretty good in the free aspect, in scaling up and down, left and right, and should be always fit, even when the game gets smaller. Then also everything else will fit in there too. If you have an overflow, which happened to me, I don't know why, but it will happen or can happen, then make sure that you write after spacer a false. That means that all the local information we just set up will be held in place. Otherwise, world coordinates will come in, and then you may have a scaling of a button you don't expect or don't really want to. Check again, and it should be fine for everything. If you want to have some space in those buttons itself, you can of course go over to the horizontal layout group we just have in here in our target 1 button. We can add some top and bottom padding for the text. So the button will automatically gets bigger in the top and in the bottom. So that's pretty cool. And we have set this one up pretty good. I also want to make sure that the target button has the right information. And now you can see if I select this one, it has the information of enemy 2 because it is enemy 2 and it holds the game object. And of course the same for enemy 1. So with that done, I just make a break and we'll go forward in the next part where we set up all the informations to make visible which hero is currently selected, and also how we can basically do something with all that buttons, and also how to hide and show the selected target panel and the action panel we need whenever we need them. So yeah, make sure you save often, don't let your mono develop rush you over, and yeah, we will see in the next part where we go over all that next stuff. Until then, feel free to subscribe to my channel, don't forget to rate and comment if you have any questions. Until then, bye bye.